Joining me with reaction, Texas Congressman Jodey Arrington. Congressman, it's always great to see you. And before we get to the border, I want to start with our political adversaries spending like drunken sailors, with all apologies to drunken sailors. Even with 20 senators agreeing on infrastructure spending, Chuck Schumer promises to use reconciliation to bypass the Republicans to spend trillions more. Listen.
And that's why we need a reconciliation package, a budget resolution that goes beyond what's in the bill.
So you attended a House Budget Ways and Means Committee hearing. Tell us what happened there today.
Well, we questioned Secretary Yellen about the rationale and logic behind the Biden economic policies that are taking us the opposite direction of prosperity and recovery and growth. We're given the keys to growth and prosperity to other countries through the numerous policies, starting with paying people to be on unemployment rather than to return to work. About half small businesses can't hire everybody. Many are going to go away and never come back. You mentioned the massive spending that's driving inflation right now for every American. You've got this assault on oil and gas, which is driving the price at the pump up. And now they want to put a big tax hike that's going to hamstring the home team when we're trying to compete abroad. And our ability to serve customers in foreign markets means jobs back home. We don't want to see what happened 10 years leading up to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which 4,000 companies inverted and re-domiciled overseas. So none of it makes sense, and we're all scratching our heads. And meanwhile, my West Texas farmers, by the way, are looking at a supercharged death tax where they'll have to have a fire sale of farming operations all across this country just to pay the taxes. So it was a difficult hearing for her, but it's difficult for every American to understand where they're going with this when we're seeing unemployment go up, inflation go up, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it seems that the Socialist Democrats don't even care about their inflation harming the most vulnerable among us, the working poor, women and minorities. And the not caring extends almost everywhere in their government. Kamala Harris, for example, she's the border czar, right? She's not at the border, but she is hosting dinner parties. She invited all female senators over to her house. And I'm glad she's having fun at parties, you know, traveling to other countries, going to bakeries and taking selfies on private jets. But, Congressman, doesn't she have any work to do?
Well, you would think when a group of female legislators and political leaders for the great United States of America get together, they would be discussing the humanitarian crisis at our border, where 1 out of every 3 women are sexually assaulted on the way over. The drug cartels are in control, and they are running roughshod over the most poor and vulnerable people. These are desperate folks, and that's one element among many that has caused the chaos and crisis at the border. So, but I'm not surprised that Kamala Harris isn't wanting to have this conversation, nor am I surprised that she's not going to the border. She doesn't want to own this, Chris. She isn't just placating the radical open border left. She is the radical open border left. So there's no answer from her, because she was the one raising her hand saying we should decriminalize border crossings, we should give free health care to people who come across our border. She was calling what ICE did to enforce immigration laws the reign of terror, comparing them to the KKK. We shouldn't be surprised. We should only be disappointed and embarrassed that Joe Biden has made her the border czar. And it's an international embarrassment what's happening at the border.
The governor of our state, Congressman, Governor Abbott, has been making some critical moves. He's putting $250 million a down payment toward construction, finishing the border wall, starting a fund so the nation can donate to it as well. He also entered into a mutual aid pact with Florida and Arizona to send law enforcement down to the border after Biden turned our Border Patrol into a bunch of taxpayer-funded Uber drivers and babysitters. What do you think of the states taking a stand, Florida, Arizona, and Texas? And then how many other states do you think will join in and help us in this effort?
Chris, I like what I'm seeing, and we need to see more of it. And I introduced a resolution. I have other members of Congress on this. We introduced it last week. And basically we're saying, states, you have sovereign powers to defend your borders and protect your people. Article 4 of the Constitution is clear. The federal government guarantees to each state protection against an invasion. Article 1, Section 10 says when that doesn't happen and there's an imminent threat, the states have that inherent right of self-defense. So they should be exercising these powers. So they don't need our legislation. They don't need Congress to act. Their commander-in-chief has failed to provide for a common defense. Joe Biden has failed to execute the laws of the land. It's time to secure the border, enforce the laws, and do that through the powers constitutionally protected of our sovereign state. So I think you're going to see more of this. Our motive behind this was to encourage, empower, and affirm that these states don't have to be passive victims of a failed federal government and a derelict commander-in-chief.
Amen.
They can take matters into their own hands when it comes to this. So I'm glad to see it. I think we'll see more of it.
You know what? And everybody could stand to be reminded that it was the states that created the federal government, not the other way around. Congressman Jodey Arrington, always a pleasure to see you, sir. Come back again soon. Up next, Catholic bishops are in a state